Good day, everybody. We're here again. Yes, talking about Nigeria, the largest concentration of Black people on the face of the planet. They say 1 out of every 6 Black person is a Nigerian. 1 out of every 4 sub-Saharan African is a Nigerian. Fantastic statistics. So we can't ignore Nigeria. So today we have another wonderful guest for you, an erudite scholar at that. You know, he's a politician, he's a political activist, he's an elder statesman, he's also an academic. So he's all encompassed in one. He's well suited for this kind of program. He is a no-holds-barred person, fantastic reputation for being honest, and he says it the way it is, you know. So today we have with us Hakeem Baba Ahmed. Welcome, sir, to the State of the Nation on the Atlanta Discourse channel.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me to your program. I've heard about it. I'm honored to be a guest.
Fantastic. We are honored to have you too. And let's just shoot straight. You know, I mean, we need to look at what's wrong with our democracy. But before we go into the nitty-gritty, I want to ask you, as in, how do you assess the current state of the nation? I know you were part of the current government. You left, I think you resigned, you were in the office of the VP in a position to advise both the president and the vice president, but you are not part of that government again. But how do you, in your own words, assess the current situation of things in Nigeria today?
This is an extremely loaded question. Nigeria is a very country, it's a very, very big country, very complex, very diverse. But if you're asking me to give you an assessment of the state of Nigeria as a country, I would say to you, we could do a lot better than what we are doing. We are in very serious trouble. The economy is not working.
Yeah, but I didn't hear most of the things you said. It was frozen. I think the network was bad. But we'll go ahead. I'll ask another question. So let's talk about bandits, insurgency. What do you think can be done to ameliorate the situation, you know, considering that now we're in the eyes of the whole world, the Americans have boots on ground, you know, there have been claims of killing of Christian genocidal, Fulani banditry, Lakurawa. How can we, in the immediate ameliorating and in the extended, what are the solutions?
I didn't hear.
Yes, broken. I was talking about insurgency, that how can we ameliorate the situation with the crisis in the country, you know, the killings, the banditry, and what have you. It's breaking.
Well, I don't think we've ever sat down as a country to, I don't think as a country we've ever sat down to seriously try to understand the genesis and the nature of these threats. We deal with their manifestation rather than the foundational roots of these problems. And the price we're paying is that they have become monsters that are now eating up everybody. There is a solution to what is going on in Nigeria, but the solution demands that we go back and ask, why are so many people taking up arms against the state? Why are so many people vulnerable to insecurity? Why is there so much poverty? Where is the linkage between poverty and insecurity? What is it? What happened to this formidable military that we used to have that could just come back here? Nigeria used to have one of the best military in Africa, maybe in the world. What happened to it? What happened to our internal security arrangements? What happened to the quality of leadership in this country? These are questions that have to be answered. We've never really sat down to deal with the genesis and the foundations. We dealt with the manifestations of these problems. And unfortunately, that is still what we are. America has no business putting boots in Nigeria, not because we don't want Americans here, but because the truth about it is there's nothing Americans can do here that will not do 20 times better. This is our country. Problems are ours. We should understand it better. And we can do what the Americans are coming here to do better. We ought to be able to do so. And we ought to have said to the Americans, no, thank you. We are very grateful. This is what friendly nations do to each other. But no, thank you. We need support. We need equipment. We need to share intelligence. We need some level of training, but we can get our country fixed. Unfortunately, we left the door open to the reasons that Americans are using now to come into our country and to make matters worse.
Okay. So how do you, if we were to do it ourselves, like you're suggesting, What do we do? Do we have to sit down and talk as a nation and look at the intricate details of why those things are happening? So how do we solve it on the long term if we're to do it ourselves?
I think the starting point is we need better quality of leaders, which allows as citizens very well 17, 18 years ago, countries were. When they tell issues about managing the economy, securing the citizens and communities, dealing with conflicts that are inevitable in a big, complex country like Nigeria, paying attention to stuff, and they concentrate only on governance because they think that is how the country is progressing. Unfortunately, this is what happens. So the first answer to your question is poor leadership. The second one has to do with the fact that this poor leadership has been made worse by what appears to be structural problems that we've had. The structure of Nigeria needs to be severely revisited. I mean, critically revisited. We are running a federal system, 3 tiers, federal, state, and local government. We have 36 states and a federal capital territory. Just the sheer cost of governance in this country is enough to provide the best education for all Nigerian people. We have to govern the country. So we need to look at Nigeria as a country. We need to look at its structure. We need to look at its where wastage occurs, where administrative limitations exist. We need to look at who is aggrieved and who is not aggrieved. We need to address those issues. So we need to restructure this country. We need to ask ourselves, is this Nigeria working for every group? Or are there people who are genuinely aggrieved? Or are there people who are taking advantage of our limitations? Again, these are very, very serious questions. So that's the second question. The third one is, I'm sorry to say this, is you guys. Nigerians who have left Nigeria and gone to another country have suddenly become I mean, we feel that you just leaving Nigeria and you feel entitled to just turn around and then throw dust in the face of the country. It's not a bad country. Many of us studied outside this country. Many of us came back to Nigeria in spite of to leave. We decided to stay. Too many of our best and brightest are leaving this country, abusing it, insulting it, making it worse. And when you say to them, well, what do you want? We'll say, fix it first before we come back. 3 million of our citizens, quite possibly, I'm just using figures here that are popular, 3 million Nigerians live and work in the US, contributing to the economic development, welfare of the American citizens. And these are people who have acquired these skills and competencies from Nigeria. And when you talk to them, they say, oh, Nigeria is a lousy country, Nigeria is broken, Nigeria is this. And who's going to fix this country? You are sitting there enjoying yourself, or we think you're enjoying yourself. And all you do is just to throw problems at us, to say, oh, you guys are lousy. And suddenly Nigerians have become we guys. And the Nigerian who is in the US or in the UK or in somewhere in Europe, it feels as if he's better than the Nigerian who's here. And the problems of Nigeria are not his or hers. That is a very, very dangerous mindset to have. This country has to be fixed because the Nigerians who are outside, by our nature, Nigerians never lose their roots. It hurts you too, we know. No Nigerian is entirely free of Nigeria wherever he goes. So there are a lot of deep structural problems with this country. They have to be addressed. But the most important thing is to get the kind of leadership that will say, okay, we have a problem. And we're not going to start from the answer to move to the question. We're going to start from the question. What is wrong with Nigeria? How can we fix it? What do we need from outside? And what can we do together? We have to fight corruption. We have to elect people who are honest. We have to elect people who are visionary, who can imagine the next 25 years. We need to elect leaders who can give our children good quality education, give young people hope that they can grow up as adults in a country that deserves their respect, not not young people who are just waiting to leave for the US, to Libya, so that they can get to Europe. A large number of our young people just want to leave this country. That tells you how bad our situation is.
Well, thank you, sir. Well, I've not written off Nigeria. I might not be happy with it. I mean, I know it's battered. Yeah, not.
I apologize for making you. I apologize for making you. But you understand the point I'm making.
Yeah, I understand, and I have to say that because what we're doing now, this program, and what I'm trying to do is my own quota that I'm contributing. You can see it's called State of the Nation. Yeah, Nigeria, and we provide solutions. We don't just criticize and what have you. That's why it's a discussion also. And I respect what you said. But having said that...
Well, forgive me for making this an example. No, this is how
I respect it. We've had the First Republic. We've had the Second Republic. We've had the Third Republic.
You're welcome.
Are you saying that we need to discuss and all that? Do you seriously think all the ethnic nationalities, all the groups in Nigeria need to sit down again and discuss the future of the country? We must, as in the political will to decide how we live. If First Republic did not end well, Second Republic did not end well, Third Republic is not looking particularly, yummy or happy or chubby for the people. So do you recommend that we actually sit down and have what some people call a sovereign national conference?
Well, two things. Sometimes we use words rather loosely, and over the years, some of them have lost their currency.
Okay.
See, you mentioned ethnic nationalities. Yeah. Nigeria is a country of more than 350 million, 350 different ethnic groups. A lot of them are represented in the National Assembly. They elect people who come to Abuja, who make laws, who amend laws, who decide how we live or how we die. So the idea of getting a conference involving ethnic nationalities doesn't make much sense. It's not just about ethnic nationalities. Every ethnic nationality, every ethnic group in this country has the same problems that others have. So it's not about ethnicity, and it's not about the elite deciding for us what we need. It's about there's enough evidence on the ground and enough people with the knowledge and the competence to say this is where we think the problem exists, and this is where we think we should go. The question, the real challenge here is, do we have a leadership that will take this on? In 2014, President Jonathan convened a conference on restructuring the country and on a lot of other constitutional issues. What they do wrong with this kind of thing, I know President Obasanjo did the same thing. What they do wrong here is that they treat it purely as an ad hoc exercise that addresses specific current and existential issues. They don't go below. What we haven't had since 1960, perhaps going back to 1945, is a genuine inquiry into how Nigeria is best structured. And because you cannot put a full and final point on this, how we can amend and change the manner in which we coexist with each other as ethnic groups. We coexist with each other as rich and poor. We coexist with each other on Muslims and Christians, and then amend it every once in a while, make it less difficult to change the constitution and the way we are structured. We need to go back and get genuine, sincere people who sit down and say, everybody is agreed about Nigeria. Our structures aren't working, our problems are mounting. Something is wrong. And what is wrong is not just limited to the north or the southeast or whatever. It is that it speaks for every Nigerian. So don't attempt to restructure Nigeria because some ethnic groups say, we are not part of the going on. You are. You have people in your local government, you have people at the state level, you have people at the federal level. So don't reduce it to ethnicity, don't reduce it to regions. Say that there is a problem with the way Nigeria is structured. Design a system that allows every part of Nigeria to have a say in terms of how they would like to see Nigeria restructured in a way that addresses some of their problems. Nobody can get everything they want. Then have the courage to put it on the table and say, the National Assembly or to communities all around the country, this is what our problems are, and these are what the solutions are. Allow a referendum in the Constitution. Let people vote. We want greater number of votes. We want greater autonomy. We want less governance. We want more governance. Those are the kind of issues we've never had any leader do, or group of leaders do, and that's what we need now. But this business of ethnicity, and it just diverts attention from the real problems that we have.
Are you one of those that support us going back to the parliamentary system of government? Do you recommend that?
I avoid these arguments about parliamentary and presidential systems of government because, to be honest with you, you introduced me as an academic. I teach university, in a number of universities. I also teach history of Nigeria, and it's not the structure you operate; it is the people that you operate that operate it. And it doesn't matter whether it is parliamentary or presidential. If you have the wrong kind of people, it doesn't matter what the system is. Let me give you a small example. I'm just coming from the Arewa House. You are interviewing me from Kaduna here. Okay. I just left the house of the late Sardauna of Sokoto, who was murdered 60 years ago. He became the premier of northern Nigeria, a huge region now. This is the northern states, 19 states. It was one region for about 15 years. When he became the premier of northern Nigeria in 1960, there were 14 secondary schools in the entire northern region. Oh, wow. By the time he was murdered in that botched coup in 1966, there were 890 secondary schools, all of them built by public funds for children of the poor that produced excellent quality people, northerners, to go to school. This is what we need. Teach leadership with a vision. It doesn't matter what the structure is. By all means, address our diversity, address our complexity, make sure you don't leave anybody out. If it is a federal system, when you need to break it up, pay attention to the cost of governance. Federal systems are extremely expensive. And we run one of the very few federal systems that have 3 tiers. You can imagine, just think of the cost of governance, federal, state, and 774 local governments. Just think every month, the amount of money we spend on funding those. Then you add corruption on top of that. There's very little money left for development. So if you have to change the system, you can still have a federal system, but that doesn't have the huge overheads that we have now. We need to change the manner in which we fund our federal system. It has to be different. If you want a unitary system, you have to pay attention to the challenges of managing diversity.
Mr. Baba Ahmed, yeah, I lost you there for a bit, but I still have 2 more questions for you. And going to 2027 election, there's a lot of fear among the opposition that there won't be free and fair election, and it's even the people are complaining. The only people that seem to be optimistic about the 2027 election are the ruling party, that's the APC. To them they played fair, and there's transparency. The law has been passed, the electoral bill, and it was done legally. But there's so much fear. And we can see there's also voter apathy. At the last local government election in Lagos State, a very negligible percentage, less than 10% voted. At the FCT recently also, you saw about 7% voted. So it's getting very low. So what advice do you have for Nigerians and the opposition party in this regard?
First question. We had a great opportunity to revisit our electoral system, which has a lot of weaknesses, and loopholes. Nigerians made huge inputs into how we can improve the 2022 Electoral Act. It went all the way to the National Assembly and then to the President. Unfortunately, we missed a golden opportunity to give Nigerians the best option, which is real-time electronic transmission of results from the polling unit to Abuja. Well, they took a decision. We have to live by it. Even a bad electoral process can deliver a result that is credible enough. What is important is that the leadership, current leadership, President Tinubu, members of the National Assembly, his party, must avoid a situation where Nigerians think there is an attempt to rig elections, part of which may be their resistance against providing the real-time transmission of result. Under any circumstances, no matter how imperfect the electoral process is, Nigerians should vote. They should say by their votes what they think of this administration. They must express their opinions. And those who are in charge of this, INEC, the government, security agencies, they must make sure that the result in the end reflects the will of the people. 2027 elections is going to be massively significant for the survival of the democratic system in Nigeria and for the country as a whole. That is how much interest people have. So under any circumstances, no one should try and tamper with the process. Imperfect as it is, it can still yield a result that is acceptable for the people. But if anybody makes an effort to interfere with it to a point where people believe that it was manipulated right from the design of the electoral process, all the way, the laws relating to the elections, all the way to the final result, I'm afraid there will be a lot of crisis in this country.
All right, my final question to you now is, what advice do you have for President Tinubu? You've worked with him, you were in the office of vice president as a political advisor, you just resigned. So what advice do you have for him? Nigeria is in a very tight place. Nobody can deny it. I'm sure even the president knows that. So what advice do you have for him going forward? That's my last question for you.
President Tinubu has a huge challenge convincing enough Nigerians that he has done enough to get their votes for a second term. He says he's been running a good economy. It has had a lot of challenges, but we're beginning to see signs of that. Unfortunately, poverty levels of destitution do not allow the results to be seen. So there's a lot of skepticism about the effectiveness of his economic policies. There are also millions and millions of people who are afraid, who are running away from killers and murderers. Insecurity has become a lot more pronounced now than it was when he became president. There are a lot of fault lines around ethnicity, around religion, the current debate about whether the US can come in and protect Nigerian Christians against a fictitious genocide is going to help. But our president has opened the door. What I'm saying is that he has a few months to fix his record with Nigerians and to allow a free and fair election to take place. If he does enough and works hard enough and addresses the key issues that he's supposed to address, he might actually retrieve some of his goodwill and enough people to vote for him. If he doesn't, then I think he's likely to lose the election. If he loses the election, I think history will mark him as a great Nigerian president who lost an election and walked away, and he should leave it there. If he wins the election, it had better be because enough Nigerians felt he had done good enough and they would vote for him.
Well, thank you for those fantastic responses. I lost you there again, but I got all your answers. And thank you for coming to Atlanta to discuss State of the Nation. I'm sure you'll be back again. I mean, it's your first time. But you are a scholar, a very erudite one, like I said. You say it the way it is. And most of the things you said now are things that we should really look at. The problem should not be categorized as ethnic or religious. We just need to play down the exorbitant cost of governance. It is a big problem. We're just borrowing with very little to show for it. And I think time to stop circumnavigating and just tell ourselves the truth. There's zero accountability at the moment. So it is what it is. And let's hope, and we can only hope. But then we can do better than hoping by, by saying, providing solution. Maybe those in power do not know what to do. So maybe if we say it, they might take the advice. So it's a wrap there for this week, and I will see you next week. We'll continue to bring in people that can help, because we are just believing that providing solutions also might just be a way out of all this. Maybe the people at the end of affairs, like I said, have been issued, do not know what to do. So we'll keep doing that. My name is still Ade Balogun. This is State of the Nation on the Atlanta Discourse channel. See you next week. Bye.